Lined up on the inside was Carpenter of America, then Halswell, then Robbins, and then Taylor on the outside.
Carpenter on the inside lane flew past, followed by Haswell, Robbins and Taylor on the outside.
Carpenter on the inside at that point. Halswell was beginning to make a move for the finish, and Halswell began to drift on further on the outside to try and get past Carpenter, but Carpenter just ran further and further and further wide. And at the end of it, the British officials, who were always aware that 3 Americans against 1 Briton might be, because of the rivalries, might be a bit of a problem, they snipped the tape and called the race void. Carpenter crossed the line first, and Halswell just gave up and stopped.
I shall never forget, as long as I live, the scene during the 400-meter race. The public had already been influenced against the Americans, and the judges, taking a signal from the same man on the field, threw up their hands, broke the tape, and declared the race off before they knew what had happened, when they were yards away.
Carpenter's elbow undoubtedly touched my chest, for as I moved outwards to pass him, he did likewise, keeping his right arm in front of me. Well, in this manner, he bored me across clear 2/3 of the track and entirely stopped my running. I mean, as I was endeavouring to pass him, and I was way up to his shoulder, to say that I could have come up on the inside is absurd. I was too close from halfway around the bend to have done so, and indeed, to have done so would have meant chopping my stride and cost me 2 to 4 yards.
But John Carpenter had another version of the events.
He was running absolutely abreast of me, but he had plenty of room on the outside. He could have passed me on the inside if necessary. I do not know of any contact between us at any point during the race. I don't know how it could have been any more fairly run.
If Carpenter had fouled Halswell, the judges should have allowed him to finish, and then if the man at the corner declared a foul, Carpenter could have been disqualified, and the race should have gone to the second man, who was Robbins. Mind you, I'm not admitting any foul.
There is a natural drift to go around the corner to go to the outside of your lane when there are lanes, and in this case there weren't lanes. And then during that time, we're talking about 1908, when the curbs were much more narrower than they are now and much less forgiving. And so, and according to Carpenter's statement, he had a very long stride, and so that was something that he naturally did.
But Lord Desborough had clearly stipulated the British rules for the athletes.
Well, any competitor jostling or running across or obstructing another competitor so as to impede his progress shall forfeit his right to be in the competition, and shall not be awarded any position or prize that he would otherwise have been entitled to.
But as far as the Americans were concerned, this was merely a matter of opinion.
Carpenter didn't foul anyone. He simply ran out Halswell, who in my opinion was quitting as I've seen him quit before. Without hesitation, I say that this race was deliberately taken away from us.
The 1908 400 metres has become a source of bitter contention, about which there's still no agreement.
I don't think that Carpenter should have won the gold. I think that you have to go with the rules that are in place. It may be unfortunate for him that the rules were not explained to him before.
2 days later, the judges ordered a rerun of the race.
It took a lot of persuading from the AAA officials to get me to run again. It was only after they appealed to my sense of duty that I acquiesced and reluctantly agreed to toe the line.
As far as the Americans were concerned, the race had been stolen from them, and there was no reason for a rerun.
On the day of the rerun, it was unbelievable. Carpenter having been disqualified, the other 2 Americans decided, because of all the disputes and all the ill feeling that was around, they decided they weren't going to run in the final. So it came to the day, the men's 400-metre final, the day before the marathon, and Wyndham Halswell was there on the track on his own. He just had to run around the track alone, the only ever walkover in Olympic history. And at that point, the games were starting to become almost like warfare.
I think it would have been very difficult for Halswell. It would have been very difficult for any athlete to go out there and run the race alone, because now you are basically winning the gold medal by default. But at the same time, it would have been very difficult not to. He really had no choice but to go out and run, because to not go out there and run would have then been conceding the other side's argument.
This changed Haswell's view of sport and fair play forever.
I've had enough, and I vow to turn my back on this sport.
He never ran another competitive race. De Coubertin's high-flown ideals had been reduced to a petty, nationalistic squabble.
Athleticism can occasion the most noble passions or the most vile. It can develop impartiality and a feeling of honor, as can love of winning. It can be chivalrous or corrupt, vile, bestial. One can use it to consolidate peace or prepare for war.
Little did Desborough and de Coubertin realise the price they would eventually pay for having appointed a British board of judges. The bad blood between the United States and Britain was both political and personal. Even when a story wasn't true, Sullivan supported the press in their sensationalist reports, and so the feud raged on.
They were unfair to every athlete except the British, but their real aim is to beat the Americans.
The Americans lodged a series of objections. Amongst them was the swimmer Charles Daniels, who complained that the British judge started the 100 metres freestyle before he was ready. In addition, American officials were said to have been sent away before the measuring of the discus. An American flag had been snatched off a competitor. The high jumpers had been put off by booing spectators just before their jump. And it was rumoured that the British judges themselves had coached the British team.
I just couldn't understand Sullivan's attitude. He shared his team's frenzy and did nothing to try and calm them down.
De Coubertin is a well-meaning, fussy, incompetent little Frenchman, but I have not one word of complaint to say against Lord Desborough, as he shows appreciation for the effort America has made in bringing a team here. He's done everything possible to make us feel comfortable. He is the right type of sportsman, of whom there are plenty in England, but they've not been in evidence.
Could the marathon, the most important event of the Games, end the bad feeling that had so far permeated the 1908 Olympics? But James Sullivan provoked a clash even before the contest took place. The Canadian marathon competitor Tom Longboat, he argued, was professional and therefore couldn't participate. As Longboat was a Native American, many interpreted Sullivan's remarks as racist.
Well, Thomas Longboat has been declared a professional by the AAU of the United States for an act committed in the United States. This is merely a matter of record.
But these words fell on deaf ears, and Longboat did take part in the 1908 marathon. Another strong contender was Dorando Pietri, a young 22-year-old Italian. Winning the 1908 marathon was Pietri's one obsession.
I will win or I will die.
Pietri was a very emotional Italian lad who wanted to make his mark in sport. He first tried to be a bicycle racer and kept falling off, and he really didn't have the build for it.
Pietri started off life in a bakery. One day he saw champion athlete Pericles Pagliani shoot past. Still in his work clothes, Pietri scampered after him, eventually beating him to the finishing line. Soon after, Dorando Pietri made his national debut at a race in Bologna where he finished second. From then on, he smashed records across Italy. Pietri's main rival was 19-year-old New York boy Johnny Hayes. He worked as a clerk in Bloomingdale's. This American athlete of Irish descent is said to have used the cinder track on the store's roof to train. Most of his running had to be done at night, since his job kept him busy every day but Sunday. For Hayes, it was a quick climb to the top. From finishing 5th at the Boston Marathon, the next year he came in 3rd. Whilst in the Yonkers Marathon, Hayes won the gold. He went on to win many cups and trophies and had become the pride of America. Hayes eventually won himself a place in the London Olympic Marathon, which he was confident of winning.
You know what they say about me? Johnny, he can run forever.
Another strong contender in the competition was the English-born South African Charles Hefferon. For all of the competitors, the marathon was the great race of the Olympics.
I had been training hard. In a race in my hometown, Carpi, I ran 40 kilometers in 2 hours and 38 minutes.
Our trainer, Mike Murphy, he taught us how to run natural. There's nothing easier than running, he used to say. You walk, then you walk fast, and before you know it, you're running.
1908 was the first time that a set distance for the marathon was established. The route was published in the London Illustrated News, with pictures displaying all the different mileposts starting from Windsor Castle.